Max Crosby is gone. The price had dropped, the window was wide open, and Ryan Poles never made a move. Jason LeCanfora said it straight today. That ship has sailed, and this defense, the same one that ranked 27th in quarterback pressure rate, still does not have its second edge rusher. But there is a detail in the Crosby story that almost nobody is reading correctly. One that is going to make you see Poles, his decision, in a completely different light. Meanwhile, Montez Sweat is making $24.5 million a year. Ben Johnson says he had one of his best seasons in the NFL. The numbers back that up partially, but there is a Pro Football Focus metric on Sweat that Halas Hall is not promoting, and when you see it, you will understand exactly why, without Crosby, this Dennis Allen scheme has a real structural problem. And then, a name nobody saw coming out of Lake Forest today, Salvon Ahmed, looks like a minor roster move. But it hides a chess play that Poles has been running silently for 3 straight off seasons. And when you see the full picture, you are going to decide for yourself whether this man is a genius or just avoiding the hard calls. Bear down, let's get into it. All right, it's over. Jason LeCanfora over at Sports Boom dropped the words no Bears fan wanted to read today. An active NFL general manager speaking without a filter said this about Max Crosby, and I'm quoting directly. He's going to start the season there, and he'll probably play his ass off. They might get some calls, but I don't think he's getting moved now. I kind of think that ship has sailed. And I'm sitting here processing that because look at what happened over the last 6 months. The Ravens put 2 first-round picks on the table for this man. Not 1, 2. And the Bears, meanwhile, were, quote, monitoring the situation. That's what Jeremy Fowler at ESPN reported back in March. Chicago wasn't a major player. The sense was they weren't going to get aggressive. And this is where I have to be controversial because nobody else is going to say it this directly. Ryan Poles made a mistake. Hold on, hear me out. I'm not saying he should have paid 2 first-rounders. That would have been too much, especially with the 2027 draft class coming up. I agree that made no sense. But when Crosby's price dropped, when the Ravens backed out and the man's trade value hit the floor, there was a window. A real one. 1 first-rounder in 2027, a mid-round asset in 2028. That doesn't blow up your draft capital. That's intelligent risk management. And Poles didn't pull the trigger. Now I understand the philosophy of this front office. Build from within. Don't overpay. Protect those first-rounders for the window. Caleb Williams is opening. I get it. And broadly, I respect it. But there's a line between being disciplined and being passive. And when your defense finished last year ranked 27th in quarterback pressure rate and 28th in passing yards allowed per play, that is not the moment to play it safe at the edge. Think about it this way. Crosby is a 5-time Pro Bowler with over $100 million remaining on his contract. Yes, but the Raiders were already willing to move him. The price had dropped. The man was basically on a clearance rack discount for an edge rusher of his caliber, and the need in Chicago was obvious, documented, and urgent. Now that ship has sailed, and the Ravens, who failed Crosby's physical, they turned around and signed Trey Hendrickson. You see what happened there? Baltimore didn't have a problem with Crosby's health. They got cold feet because they found another option. That means Crosby's physical was probably fine, and the Bears let him walk anyway. So what are Poles' options now? The reports mention Cameron Jordan and Jadeveon Clowney, and I want to be fair here because it's not all negative, but I also want to be honest. Cameron Jordan is 35 years old. He's a respected veteran, a name with history in this league, but he is not the second starting edge threat you need next to Montez Sweat when the 2026 schedule includes teams with elite offensive lines. Clowney has undeniable talent, but his health history over the last few years is exactly the kind of gamble Poles claims he doesn't make. This is not a minor problem. This is the missing piece that determines whether this defense functions the way Dennis Allen designed it to. Without a legitimate edge rusher opposite Sweat, you're asking one man to carry the pressure load of an entire defensive unit, and that doesn't work in the modern NFL. Not against Patrick Mahomes, not against Lamar Jackson, not against anyone who can read a defense. Bear down or go home, Poles. The question is no longer whether you need an edge rusher. The question is whether you're going to act before training camp opens or whether you're going to wait. Now that we've closed the Crosby chapter, we need to talk about Sweat because Ben Johnson said something after the draft that got mixed reactions across the entire fan base, that Montez Sweat had, quote, one of his better years in the NFL in 2025. And I understand why people raised an eyebrow at that. Look, Sweat's individual numbers are real. 8th in the league in sacks with 10, 10th in pressures with 48, and first in the entire league in turnovers caused by pressure with 6, a number that was critical to Allen's scheme, which prioritized takeaways above everything, and the Bears ended up leading the NFL in that category. Those are solid numbers. Ben Johnson isn't lying, but here's the uncomfortable part that nobody wants to say out loud. Montez Sweat is being paid like a top 16 edge rusher in the NFL at $24,500,000 per year. And when you stack him against the elite names in this league, the Myles Garretts, the Micah Parsons, the Max Crosbys of the world, Sweat lands around 10th in sacks and pressures. Not first, not third, 10th. Now, that doesn't make him bad, but it puts things in perspective, because at that price in this defense, with the pass rush being the number one problem on this team, you need more. And Pro Football Focus confirms it. His run defense grade was 62.9, the lowest of his entire 7-year career. The man is better rushing the passer than stopping the run. That's fine if you have an edge partner who balances it out. But right now, you don't. Here's the optimistic argument, and I want to give it because it's fair. Sweat enters year 2 of Dennis Allen's system, and that difference matters more than people realize. Year 1 of any new scheme in the NFL is installation, adjustment, communication. Year 2 is execution. The coordinator is no longer teaching the alphabet. He's refining technique, adjusting stunts, exploiting the football IQ his players built the season before. For an edge rusher like Sweat, that could be the difference between 10 sacks and 14. And remember, back in 2023 with the Commanders, Sweat reached 12.5 sacks. His ceiling is proven. Allen's system in year 2, combined with Sweat operating with full command of his assignments, that's a combination that can produce something special. But, and this is the but you cannot ignore, all of that works only if there's pressure from the other side too. Because rival tackles are going to bracket Sweat all day long if the opposite edge isn't threatening them. That's just the physics of pass rushing, and that brings us right back to the exact same problem, the absence of that second impact player. Poles said after the draft he feels good about Odeyingbo, Sweat, Turner, and Booker. I respect the public confidence in your players, but Odeyingbo and Turner are coming off serious injuries. Booker is in year 3. That group is not one that strikes fear into NFL offensive line rooms. That's a group that could surprise people if everything breaks right. In the NFL, betting that everything breaks right with players recovering from injuries isn't strategy, it's hope. And hope doesn't win playoff games. Sweat has the year of his life in front of him if Poles builds the right team around him. The question stays exactly the same. Will he? All right, let's shift the energy for a second, because in the middle of all this pass rush drama, the Bears also made roster moves today that look small on the surface. But when you look closer, they reveal exactly how this front office operates in the details. The Bears officially signed running back Salvon Ahmed, a Kirkland, Washington native, former Husky, out of the University of Washington, a guy who didn't see a single snap in the entire 2025 season after suffering a brutal ankle injury during Colts training camp caused by a hip drop tackle. The exact kind of play the NFL banned in 2024. The irony is brutal, fam. Ahmed is 27 years old with 593 career rushing yards and 5 touchdowns with the Dolphins, and he's hungry to come back. The depth picture in Chicago's backfield is clear. Swift and Monagai are locked in as the starters. Roshan Johnson is also in the room, so Ahmed is here to compete for a practice squad spot, or if he really turns heads, that third active roster position. But the smartest move of the day wasn't Ahmed. It was everything the Bears did around this signing. They waived Deion Hankins, signed defensive back Anthony Johnson Jr., a 2023 7th-round pick from the Packers who spent all of last season on the Giants' PUP list. And to create space for both additions without touching the 90-man limit, they activated Torrey Taylor's international player roster exemption. That last move is pure Poles. 3 consecutive offseasons now using the exact same play. Put Taylor on the international player list, stretch the roster to 91 men, add depth without spending draft capital. Simple, repeatable, effective. Not the most glamorous move in the world, but it's exactly the kind of roster management that separates well-run organizations from the ones always putting out fires. Johnson Jr. is the interesting name here. 4 starts for the Packers in 2023. 1 interception, 3 pass breakups, 24 total tackles. The Bears have some uncertainty in the safety depth chart. Cam Lewis and Elijah Hicks are competing for the 2 backup spots behind Kobe Bryant and first-round rookie Dylan Thieneman. Neither is locked in. Johnson arrives with something to prove and a real window to earn a spot. It's not the headline of the day, but it's exactly the kind of move that in August, when the final 53 gets set, might turn out to be the piece that mattered. So that's where we stand in the Windy City tonight. The Max Crosby chapter is closed forever, and I still believe Poles left real talent on the table by not getting more aggressive when the price dropped. Sweat walks into the most important year of his Bears career with everything to gain if Poles gives him the right running mate on the edge, and the roster machine at Halas Hall keeps proving it's one of the smartest detail-oriented front offices in the league. But the question keeping me up tonight is simple. Is Poles going to add that edge rusher before training camp, or do we roll into September hoping and praying? Drop it in the comments right now. Do you sign Cameron Jordan today, or do you trust Booker to take that leap in year 3? That debate right there is what I want to see blowing up below. And if this video made you think even for 1 second, that like button takes less time than that. Bear down, Chicago, always.